Boa tarde, vamos iniciar então a programação da tarde do seminário 70 anos de...
Good afternoon. Let's start the afternoon here for the seminar 70 years of CNPq, past, present, and future, thinking and transforming Brazil. Let's start table 5. The theme is National System of Science, Technology, and Innovation. And let's start
recording in progress.
The participation of Professor Evaldo Ferreira Vilela, the president of CNPq. We also have the presence of Professor Marcelo Morales, Secretary of Formation and Technology of Innovation. Also, we have Professor Fernando Rizzo, president of CGE. And remotely, we have the participation of Professor Claudia de Toledo, president of CAPES, and Marcelo Bortolini, director of Scientific and Technological Development from FINEP. I will give the floor to Professor Evaldo Vilela. Good afternoon, everyone. It is great to have you all here, continuing the seminar. There has been an intense joy because we're gathering people and also authorities, colleagues that are responsible for science and technology and innovation in the country. And I am very impressed with the richness of everything that has been spoken here. And we are also seeking ways to have a document about what has been said here. So we also have videos for the young talents in Brazil, because they don't read it a lot anymore, but they watch videos. So I have a great satisfaction to be here. I want to thank Secretary Marcelo Morales, which comes from this house as well. He was a director here for 5 years. He knows CNPq very well. So he has a lot to contribute here to us. And I want to thank the work that we have been doing together at CNPq. Here with me, I have Professor Rizzo, which is, I'm very happy for him to be here, because he's the president of CGE. And also, recently he was with us again, and it's a joy to have him here. And he knows well our science and technology. Professor Claudia Toledo is present remotely in Campinas. I want to thank you for your presence. It's very important to have you here, to have your testimony, your vision about the National System of Science and Technology. You are very brilliantly guiding CAPES in these difficult times. It has been very difficult because of all the situation, global situation and Brazil situation. And we are advancing. This is very important for CAPES and CNPq. We have had an understanding, a very good understanding among us, and this is fundamental for the National System of Science, Technology, and Innovation. And Bertolini, which is our high-level boss that runs FINEP. And I want to thank you on behalf of CNPq, Marcelo Bortolini, that has been doing everything. He's been 24 hours working in order for the resources to flow, not just the resources, but to understand. And he has been fundamental, as well as General Barroso and all his team. Here we have a very good table. And the reason of this table is that the 70 years of CNPq and going to the 71st year, we want to celebrate This is the second to last table. And we're talking about the future, which is today, which is the central point of how we see CNPq in this national system of science, technology, and innovation. And the ministry and Professor Marcelo has a lot to do this in a very good way. They are creating because the system exists, but we don't have a guideline of an organization. So it's very important, and the ministry, as the young people say, they are doing that to make the system work. So let's start with Professor Marcelo Morales. His vision is very important because he knows a lot about CNPq. And we have to state this very clearly. CNPq was born before the ministry, so it had a practice. It was a part of the presidency one day. And it was, how do we say, it was an agency linked to the presidency. And then it became linked to the ministry, which is very good because the ministry was a desire of the Brazilian society, of the scientific community in Brazil to have a ministry. And we've had very important moments in the Ministry of Science and Technology and today innovation. And how is CNPq today? We have that memory that we were larger and then we have decreased. And there is a tendency to think that we are just an operator of the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. And this, of course, we are operators. Of course, we run and administer funds. But what are we in the midst of it all? We are working very well. Before this scenario, we need to have a good relationship with the scientific community, with the country, with the ministry. So in order not to be reduced only to this operational side, because we're bigger than that. CNPq, just to summarize, the coordinator said I am exaggerating you. I'm sorry, but this is a very important moment. This is the only institution in the country that can, in 2 weeks, gather 15,000 thinkers, 15,000 scholars. So nobody can do that. We had this call. We're going to have 15,000 scholarships, not just the more active ones, but the ones that are doing this daily. They are 15,000 people. So it's an institution that has an important role. What is the role? So Marcelo, please, you have the floor. Thank you, Professor Evaldo. I would like to say that this, for me, this is always, I get very emotional about coming back here. CNPq is not only my house as a researcher, not only my home, but I started to do the management here at CNPq with the wonderful civil servants that we have. They are well trained. They are doctors and masters, as well as the Ministry of Science and Technology. I would like to thank you for this opportunity. I would like to say welcome, Professor Toledo, President of CAPES. We have been doing a great work together with CNPq, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Science and Technology, with many important debates. So I would like to thank the publicly, the President of CAPES. And I also like to say hello to Marcelo Bortolini, President of FINEP, has been a great partner in the implementation of resources, not only for COVID, but also with FNDCT, General Barroso, and all the partners that have been doing an exceptional work, and Professor Rico, who has a very important job in front of CGE to discuss this with the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. This roundtable was a very pertinent because when the Ministry of Science and Technology was created, it was also stated that it was a role from the federal government and the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation to formulate, to propose a bill that would foment the system for science, technology, and innovation. We all know that it exists and it's there, but is it on paper? No, it doesn't exist because it isn't on paper. So we are on a limbo since 85, 89. We have been in this situation and we don't have a national system. This has been discussed for a long time, and in many governments. But in 2019, when I was invited to be a Secretary of Science and Technology, I stated very clearly in the transition and in meetings with the many institutions of technology that we needed to have a deeper discussion about the national system of science, technology, and innovation. Why is this important? Because we need to know on paper who coordinates the system. This is very important because if we have a pulverized system and each person is going to do whatever he or she wants, we need to have a coordination. We need to see these unnecessary costs in the technology system. And if I have a system, I know who are the participants. Here we have some CNPq, FINEP, the linked unities like CGE, the science and technology institutions, they include the universities, which represent 90% of the national research, the foundations that support the technology and research in the states. We have the ministries, we have other organizations like Embrapa. It isn't part of the system, but it's in the ministry. So what do we want to do? We want to foment what is in the law, what is determined in the Constitution. We want to have a bill that is extensively discussed with society, and then we have to do it in the scope of CCT to what is the system, what is the national system, and have a proposition, and it's part of CG's job to do this, to stimulate this system. And we don't have that, surprisingly. So in the scope of CCT, which is the Council for Science and Technology, and we had a meeting and we established some committees to present some proposals. What is the proposal? What is the bill that we together will present to the Congress? And then the federal government will present to the National Congress. And then the process is going to happen in the National Congress, so the system will be established. This is important because we don't have a national policy for science and technology. And we have been discussing this policy in the scope of CCT, in this Council of Science and Technology, which is presided by the Ministry of Science and Technology. I am ahead of the discussion with the executive secretary. At the same time, we're discussing the system. And now it's worth to highlight the importance of CCT, but also the role of CGE. They have been doing the organization of these discussions. So for example, for the policies, we have had a dynamic with all the participants to how this system would be. After many weeks, CGA has compiled, has gathered a text that was given to the members of CCT. And now they are going to give their contributions paragraph by paragraph, so that as of the 9th, we're going to see these contributions. And after all of this, when we make decisions about everything, we're going to have a public hearing, and then other stakeholders can give their contributions in a democratic, extensive discussion for all society. And this is what we have to do. And as we were discussing a little bit before this meeting, the National System of Science and Technology, it's going to be a basic text with the contributions of all these institutions. And after that, we're going to have a discussion with CCT, a debate, to see what this bill is going to be like. So this is fundamental, so we can have an organization, a system, the policy, to have the new strategy for science and technology, the plans and the actions. And then we'll have the complete framework organized with somebody organizing that, which would be the committee in the ministries, and also with civil society, with the Ministry of Science and Technology, and also with the executive secretary. If we have a discussion about the strategy, for example, for fertilizers, which is a trending topic, I can't do this only with FINEP and CNPq. We have to call the system, because we know that CAPES has the resources, we have FINEP, we have many players. We have to call up on them to start building a strategy for fertilizers, to face pandemics, to face problems related to economy, for sustainability, biodiversity, and so on. And something else that is very important and being discussed when we discuss the National System of Science and Technology and Innovation, and also the national politics. And we also have the strategy to show CCT and to show the proposal. We'll have system, policies, and strategies. So when we have that, we can have a guideline of what we want to do in Brazil in a coordinated way, without spending resources unnecessarily. And this is what we need to do. We have to have a general coordination. We don't want to take care of anything, be the managers of anything, but we need coordination. We've seen during the pandemics, and I've seen this in front row, we've had many calls with CNPq and FINEP, and we had also calls for CAPES, in the foundations for researchers in the states that weren't coordinated together. So if we were in a system, if we were in a national system of science and technology, we could call the participants of this system, we could coordinate a strategy, and we could do this without working individually, working together. So this discussion has to be democratic, has to be extensive, has to have the participation of society and government. Otherwise, we won't have a general coordination.
Another important point in the system that is being discussed under the national system and the policy and INCT, the strategy for INCT is financing.
A liberação do CT.
You know that we had the release of FNDCT, and it's important, it was there, FNDCT. So going into investments, we have Ministry of Education, Embrapa, Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, FNDCT. So let's talk about the FNDCT. We have organized the whole area of biotechnology, and under these public calls of FNDCT, 96 million reais have been approved for biotechnology. I need to share this with all players in the system for science and technology. Of course, I am discussing with some participants, but this needs to be in the system. If the system is there, I can call them all and share with them. Regarding agriculture and livestock raising, several actions of 2021, these all have been approved, those that are listed in this slide. Edfert, Pronasolos, CNPq has calls for the semi-arid, sugarcane, research, development and innovation in meteorology, and other public ones, bioeconomy, environment, innovation, environments, food techs, future foods. For example, laboratory meat. Brazil needs to discuss that and needs to start now. And we are talking 180 million reals. Health. We know that are several actions related to COVID, but there's also RNA, ANR vaccines for dengue virus as well. We do need other platforms. And also for malaria by Plasmodium vivax. In the health area, we have public calls in CNPq for all these areas that are listed here: chronic and degenerative diseases, covering a total of 621 million reais just for health. And under the FNDCT, over 80 public calls have been authorized to be launched this year. It is a major challenge for CNPq and FINEP. Next one, biodiversity, 80 million reals for preservation of our biodiversity at the Amazon, regeneration of depleted areas in several biomes, pastures, mining. It's not just planting trees, it is research with the best seedlings, with local communities, together with forestry, all that reconciling with the national system. 21 million. And for the Atoll Tower, 21 million reals. Amazon Face is the first action.
Nós vamos estudar como que a floresta amazônica ela vai se comportar com aumentos das
That we have for
Isso nunca foi feito em floresta.
increased CO2 emissions in tropical forests. This is a pioneering study. This is the first one carried out. We are going to build this structure. We're going to inject CO2 and we're going to study that for 20 years. It is an answer that we don't have yet. Climate and sustainability, 231 million with all these calls in this slide. For Antarctica, because it is under the interest of defense, health, climate, and we have 40 million reals invested in the next calls and infrastructure actions for the Antarctica. Human and social sciences, 56 million reals, and several public calls here in CNPq. The new calls for INCTs, 400 million reals. I think it's got 400. And the universal call, 250 million. 50 from CNPq and 200 from FNDCT. Total investments by FNDCT for science, 21-22, 1.85 billion reals. If it is not in the system, if we do not have a system, if we don't have a policy, a strategy, programs, and actions, we are not going to be able to organize all these investments. There will be separate calls, so we need to organize these calls. Human and social sciences, they all need to be inside a program and a strategic action inside a national policy for science and technology, for social sciences, for biodiversity, the same. I need to have actions, strategies, programs, policies inside the system, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, we're going to do more of the same. It's going to be same old, same old. And we need to discuss the policy, the strategy, the actions, and the programs. It is essential. If we don't have that organized, we're going to continue in the same old path. Thank you. We're going to have questions at the end. Here now I would like to introduce to you the FAPESP publication. Here there's an article by Fritz Miller, who worked with Darwin in the theory of evolution. It is here in this publication. It is really good. Also, I'd like to thank Anderson and ABC, the Brazilian Science Academy. Together with us, we have had Anderson helping us with our video system and with our event, the technical side. Thank you. Professor Claudia Toledo, president of CAPES. She's in Campinas and she's online. It is great because she's going to be able to participate with us. This was not possible before the pandemic. It is possible now. So thank you, Professor. Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Está sem som.
Então, testando o som, chegando bem.
Testing.
Muito bem. Meus caros amigos, caros...
Hello, dear friends, participants in our seminar. I'd like to say that Professor Evaldo, I'm very thankful for this participation. I'd like to be there, to be together with you, Professor Marcelo, Professor Rizzo, but somehow I come to this event as an external participant, but with a very strong sense of belonging. I'd like to thank you for the 70th anniversary, for the brilliant lecture by Professor Moraes. It was an actual class about efficiency in public administration focused on science. It is great. It was great. It is an interinstitutional experience. So I'd like to thank you all. And also Helena Nader, Professor Helena Nader. It is great that ABC is participating with us in this seminar.
Representa todos nós.
She represents all of us, not only about who we are, but the place where we want to be. Professor Helena deserves all honors, especially from us, women, professors and researchers. She is intensively linked to this 70th anniversary of CNPq. So all of you, I salute all of you who were there and those who are with us participating online. Well,
aqueles que nos antecederam, eu tenho até uma certa vontade.
Professor Evaldo, after initial greetings, I actually would like to speak about several topics, but I will try and focus on the topic I was asked to talk about. From the very beginning, you have not authorized me to make it public or to publicize this information, but in this proposal of policies, interlocution, policy strategies and programs, one part would be to include in PNPG of the plan for our committee the presence of Professor Evaldo as a representative of CNPq, as a member of the plans of CAPES. Since we want to work in a system, and it is great, and I thank you very much for accepting to be part of our PNPG. And you have major responsibility in this integration and in the shaping of this system that is integrated and focused on efficiency of the use of public resources. Thank you very much for being part of PNPG. I will speak briefly. It is a challenge to speak briefly, but the relationship is very deep between our agencies. So I will talk a little bit, only briefly, about CAPES and the policies that are being developed, and that can be focused on the shaping of the system, the national system for science and technology. In this evolution of scientific development, CAPES and CNPq are twin sisters. We were both established in 1951, a landmark of institutionality. And that was a moment for institutional strengthening, and that's how we're going to proceed.
So I'm going to organize now, and I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to do a brief show. This just organizes. This will make a brief registration of our participation here. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see my slides, Professor Evaldo? Yes, yes, we can see it. So our history is not our ally in time. And to bring this information, it's important to have a context to the development of science and technology in Brazil. Before that, I would like to thank you, the directorship of scholarships, that has sent me excellent references, excellent texts, nice to read, that were very well elaborated about the development of science and technology. A text from Professor André Gonçalves about the 50s and 60s in CNPq. Also about the 40 years of FNDCT from Professor Maria Silvia. And also a text from Professor Sérgio Rezende and Francisco Carlos. Well, professors that make this registration of history not only for CNPq, but that address the need to strengthen this system, this national system of science and technology that we intend to do. So the development of science and technology in Brazil, it can be thought about the first acts that went a little bit after the end of World War II, and the governmental aid actions, differently from what is being proposed by Professor Marcelo, they were thought in a very isolated way. And then agencies were born. In this period, the research bodies were created more to address just specific reasons, and they didn't have an identity that could allow this integration with other centers. And it was possible actually to register this birth, I'm sorry. And then we have the National Museum, the Bacterial Lab in São Paulo. The date, I don't remember very well. The creation of Institute Butantan, the creation of National Institute of Technology. Let me change the slide. In a second moment, in 1950, in the 50s, the problem is about technology is between the keyboard and the screen, and it's called Claudia. In a second moment, in the beginning of the 50s, in the Getúlio Vargas period, there was a nationalist policy focused more for the economic development. development in Brazil. And at that moment, they started to implement the base to form this national system. Focus then to train human resources, implement physical structures, to foment, to organize researchers, to form the scientific association, and then the actions, the great actions come, Petrobras, BNDES, and the establishment of these commissions that dealt with technology and for a welfare state in Brazil. And in this moment, we have the birth of our twin sisters, CAPES and CNPq. Let me change. So CAPES initially was thought as a campaign agency. And I like this registry a lot because it is the opposite of what we think about a state body. It is a campaign so that it could, at that moment, it was said, the minister said at that moment, it has a proposal that if for this campaign to leave the practice registration with no technicians and enter in a new science era. I think this is something that is very nice from Cordova, and that makes this registration, CAPES is a campaign, and CNPq, Professor, you can correct me if I'm not exactly right about that, but CNPq is addressing two initial projects that we are revisiting now. The first one, developing nuclear studies, strongly linked to national security issues, and on the other side, to address a demand. And then we have the great contribution from the scientific society for a expectation of SBPC and also a participation from ABC. So CNPq is born out of an agenda that we're now revisiting with very important projects. So this was the beginning. I don't want this to be tiresome for you, but this is the beginning of the operation of these agencies. And from this initial organization, such a long time ago, that we have this seminar, such a high-level seminar, that starts to think about the organization of a national system for science and technology. In this moment, from the 60s to the 80s, we have the other agencies. In 64, for example, it was created the FUNTEC, the Fund of Technological Development, that had a fundamental role for science and technology in the country. And then in 67, FINEP was created to institutionalize the fund to finance projects. And then in 69, FNDCT, under the responsibility of FINEP. So there were historical creations that were born in a moment where CNPq and CAPES celebrate 70 years, and that reaffirm the need to create a system, a communicative system. We can't we can't just talk between ourselves and communicate just a few actions. We have to talk about all of our actions, all of our institutional actions. And then I'm getting closer to the end, we have to organize, structure the policies that enable the scientific development for the country. I think this was historical contribution between the 60s and the 80s. CAPES, CNPq, BNDES, FINEP, they were really the main agents to find different types of support that were focused to foment these activities, these scientific activities in Brazil. And from this organization, we have what Professor Marcelo said, that CAPES, where is CAPES in this scenario? CAPES is responsible for important policies that are focused in the strengthening of this system. The first one, the National Plan of Graduate Studies. The second policy, evaluation of stricto sensu graduate students. I want to take this opportunity to say that the evaluation is working actively. We have collected data. Our evaluation stabilization is really advanced, with the public ministry supporting us, with the community supporting us. Also, we have the investment to train resources in Brazil and abroad, the promotion of international and national cooperation. We can't forget about this big slice in education in Brazil, which is to continue to train professors in the fundamental level of education. This is part of the system, and also the elaboration of policies to reduce asymmetries in the education in Brazil. I think this is very important for Brazil, and this is a great challenge for the National System of Science and Technology. CAPES in Brazil, as we can remember well, is present in all graduate studies in Brazil, graduate courses. This represents 80% of the national research. And CAPES is responsible for that. We have to walk together indeed. Professor Evaldo, if you allow me, let me talk about it. We have to highlight that although we are here in this festive moment, in this celebratory moment, with this enthusiasm, that in certain moments, CNPq has suffered some problems. They try to extinguish this agency, that it could be encompassed by CAPES. Now we can say, with the voice of all the researchers, that the presidency of CAPES and CNPq have never been more closer. And we are supporting many projects. We are together in the defense of the integrity of CAPES and CNPq. We are together. And last, to get to our point, what are the policies of CAPES that can be integrated to CNPq, so we can together get the strengthening of the system? What do we project for the future? First, I want to say that there is no future without planning. So this seminar is so important, which is not only celebratory, but It's also to make the commitment to do that. What are the policies? While we talked, the first idea is that the policies are really permanent. They are state policies that they get improved. They don't get reduced by the changing of scenarios, political scenarios. And also that we have exchange of scientific knowledge. Also, master's and doctors scholarships. They need to have a better, people have to take a better look at them. Then it needs improvements so they could really mean the change for the lives of Brazilian people. I've noticed that Professor Morales has taken very good care to say that we need different policies, that we need policies for life sciences, for exact sciences. We need access policies. The academia was accused of being very exclusive, and this is not true. It has been a socialization instrument of knowledge to reduce asymmetries. And what we're doing today, we're doing an institutional interlocution. So I will wrap my presentation, and I will say again that I am an external member, but I feel like I belong to this great system that is being coordinated by users. So congratulations to the Brazilian research. Congratulations to the organization of this seminar. I want to send many hugs, my admiration hugs for this table, for this honorable table. And I want to thank the opportunity for speaking here today. So congratulations to our twin sister agencies. And I will thank you. Professor Claudia.
Thank you so much, Professor Claudia. It is an honor for us to hear your testimony. And somehow it is a history for us, because as you mentioned yourself, but I apologize to Marcelo because I didn't comment on his presentation, but I do have to say that about Professor Claudia's presentation. This threat still exists, unfortunately, and we do understand that we depend on our understanding from now on. And what we heard from Professor Claudia is simply, it is even hard to describe, because what happened in the relationship CAPES-CNPq, well, and I saw that happen because I was a president of CONFAP. So it is really good to hear that we are going this path, and we thank you for your respect for CNPq and this understanding of the facility to understand. I think the easiness of understanding. We do have an identity and we do share this system, and CAPES and CNPq complement each other, bringing the possibility for this development of talents and research in Brazil. So thank you very much. And I know that Professor Luiz Davidovich showed that when CNPq was established, I'm not sure if it's exactly it, but this mission that you mentioned of looking after nuclear energy, and we are living this again. CAPES and CNPq have a partnership with Aramar, which is the technological base of the Navy. I lost myself. I do apologize. But when we did that, Professor could see that Brazil only had 100 researchers. And it was the motivation for us to create a national campaign for researchers. So we do need to be close to this work, because the principle actually having people qualified to work with research is fantastic. And we being together in the system, CAPES and CNPq, is excellent. This is it. It is simple, but it's correct. It is good for the country and for us. Thank you. You were going to mention Professor Davidovich.
Nós tínhamos quando foi criado o CNPq.
When CNPq was created, we had 100 researchers in Brazil, and now we have 200,000 researchers. So this is thanks to CAPES and CNPq. So thank you very much. You are professor for all of us. And this is a public testimony of how it was easier for me to better understand the paths of the agencies. We are giving our best, we are doing our best, and we are joining efforts. And in this historical efforts, through CAPES, I did find a project for extinguishing CNPq. We are going to put it on the wall. It is something that we need to remember that we do not want to do. So it should be there, and we should look at this every day in order to remind ourselves we don't want that anymore. Thank you very much. Now we will proceed with Professor Fernando Rizzo. He is the president of CGE. Thank you. I'd like to thank for the invitation. CGE is a young institution. We were 20 last year, but I think it was very interesting that you mentioned the program for institutionality. CGE was born like that, a conference, the second conference in 2001, and we realized the importance of these moments of reflection. The first one in the 80s, in 2001, the second, and the final assembly, we decided to create a center to formulate public policy and provide subsidy. And based on this mission, CGE organized two conferences. The third one in 2005, and the fourth one here in Brasilia, when we produced the Blue Book. And it was great that that was commented here. This is something that goes well against these moments when we discuss things for the country. So, CGE aims to subsidize decision-making processes in topics related to science, technology, innovation, and education through studies, prospection, and prospective studies, and strategic evaluation. And we're going to show you how CGE and CNPq work together. It is major for us to have this collaboration and this work, this joint work with CNPq and CAPES. I use them all. I received a grant from CNPq, from CAPES, and FINEP, participating in committees and other agencies. So we're talking about the jewels of the crown. CGE tries to contribute, making this dialogue. So it is important for the system. I was director of CGE from 2006 to 14 as well. And something that I could see was the ability of being exempt, impartial, because we could bring the best researchers, the best institutions. It is a neutral ground. I remember we studied renewable energies, and we had people from different ministries, mines and energy, the environment, and science and technology. And he said, well, it is the first time I'm here with colleagues, because these ministries all have a program for renewable energy. They work separately. And now we are working together and combining things and looking at things in an impartial manner. So we started with this area of evaluation, policies and programs, and then identifying technological opportunities, trends, studies of the future, then mapping out competences, management, and knowledge. And I believe we have this competence already developed. This is an example of projects in partnership with CNPq. I heard about this evolution, this evolvement, and CNPq was created as a program to develop the nuclear area of knowledge. But normally CNPq used to cover or cater for individuals. And then the large projects started in the 80s. And then we started to have Pronex, then Millennium Institute, and then the NCTs. I worked with this evaluation. It was really interesting, and we learned a lot. And then the INCTs, the National Institutes of Science and Technology. And afterwards, we had the evaluations. The first one was in 2010, then 13, and we had the preparation for 2014 and then 2019. there was a very interesting study about PBIC and how they made a difference to those students or these individuals or researchers receiving that kind and that modality of grants. And these exploratory studies are ideas from researchers by CNPq and CGE. They developed that. These are two examples. The basic CISBOY, the program for the environmental area, and we carried out also the strategic repositioning of CNPq.
So we had some important developments that were documented here, and recently they had the idea of evaluate a seminar to evaluate the policies, to internalize knowledge and improve the two houses in relation to this project. So we are in relation to the INCT program. We had the idea of forming networks. So the World Bank had a program, and they created this idea to take advantage of the installed capacities and develop groups. So this is very interesting. And the pillars, I'm not going to go into detail, but it's about research and human resources and technology, and also the productive sector, and also the release part. So as I said, the participation in the preparation of the call in 2014, it was a responsibility of CNPq and CG. And this last part about the seminar is very interesting because they wanted to evaluate two things that were very interesting. So the release was a very important part for CNPq, but we don't know how to do that. So they had this idea that professionals from these areas could come during the evaluation. And it was the first time that we had business rounds. So we could have SEBRAE and the productive sector together, and we could foment this for their researchers. So, and then we had the PBIC. It was very interesting. The impact for many scholarships and for many professors, and especially for society. And this impact for society is very interesting because we participated a lot in the sectors, and how can we measure this impact? In the case of PBIC, it was very clear its importance for the scientific initiation for master's and doctor's degrees, and also for the destiny of the graduate students. And also we had the seminar for evaluation and policies of CT&I, and we had strategical partnerships, and we have this report that is published regularly. And the most important works were taken to a conference that happened in 2018. 4 studies were presented. One of them was presented in the scenario of CNPq for the Joint Research Center, and another one was in collaboration with CAPES. Finally, as I said, lately, people have been working with strategies and competences. And this will have an important participation from CNPq. And the platform Lattice, it sends us the data, provides us with the data. And everyone was very amazed because we were ahead of many countries about 10 years ago. And this study was conducted with CAPES and for subsides for the national agenda of graduate students. And they conducted this research. And we had 4,815 respondents, consultants, I'm sorry, and more than 3,000 respondents. And this was made with the scientific production. What is produced here? And we had more than 1 million curriculums that were processed, and we had 214 networks of similarity and co-authors. This is very interesting because especially for projects that are in the beginning and to be available in general. And I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Adriana for the presentation. She is the responsible for the OCTI, which is this Observatory of Science, Technology, Innovation. And they monitor and take care of the indicators. And they follow the distribution in the country in the many areas, the access to lattes and stricto sensu. So this is a program that is available. It's in a platform. I think it's a little bit small, but you can see right at the bottom. I would like you to go to this website, octi.cgee.org.br, and you can obtain information. They are available. And we have the participation from many institutions and from many support institutions that are interested in using these tools. So here we have an example of indicators. We have a map there that shows you what's happening in Brazil. And we also have many information. We have a lot of information. And we can compare regarding regions and states. And we also have categories divided by themes. And we can see the distribution for science and also published articles. So we have education. Of course, each team is going to have different categories, but you can see it's very dynamic, and you can choose the theme you would like to see. So as I said, I would like to thank once more your invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you. We have been together for a long time. Also Marcelo, also Dr. Claudia from CAPES for her participation. And our colleague is going to present now. And CAPES is an institution that formulates policies for the country. And we are open to discussion, to criticism and suggestions. So it's important to have another conference. I think that we could have a national conference to consolidate what has happened from 2010 to here. And now with this digital evolution, the world is transforming. And I hope that the ministry is also with us in this consensus. It's important to have a deeper reflection about our future. Thank you very much. Thank you, Fernando Rizzo. Just to remind you very briefly, because we don't have much time, this observatory needs to be more visited. It's fantastic. It's not very used, but it's something that is amazing to obtain data and for data analysis. And you can use it. It's worthwhile. It's worth it. Okay, so Marcelo Bortolini, please, you have the floor. Good afternoon, Professor. Thank you for your invitation. It's an honor to be here participating in this table with a very select group. I would like to say hi to Professor Marcelo Moraes, that coordinates the research area in the ministry, Professor Rizzo from CGE, Professor Claudia de Toledo from CAPES. I would like to start on behalf of General Barroso Magno, our president in FINEP, to congratulate CNPq for its 70 years. It's our twin agency. It's an honor to be here with you, sir, in the actions in CNPq. As Claudia mentioned, I would like to be there. But as our secretary mentioned, there is a huge area of actions that are happening. And the time of traveling, we are saving it. And we are taking advantage of the digital resources that the pandemic has taught us well how to use it. So we are here in Rio, not because we don't appreciate it, but to optimize our time to work. If you allow me, I would like to show you a quick presentation. It's a very simple one. Do you know my presentation? Can you see it? Yes, we are. When we talk about the science and technology in Brazil, we have this foment which is made in the federal and regional level. Professor Evaldo, I'm sorry to break the protocol. In the beginning, you said that FINEP is the owner of the money. No, but we have two hats, and the owner is the director council of CNT, and we have some members here, you, Professor Helena Nade, and others. Within the agencies of foment, we have CAPES, Embrapi, FINEP, CNPq, BNDES. We can't forget that when we talk about a national system, we have the foundation that support the states that work with us. We have also the regional banks of development, and we have a whole infrastructure. And as Professor Claudia showed us, and Marcelo Morales has mentioned, it's something that was built with time. It's not out of the blue that they said, oh, let's create a CNPq or CAPES or FINEP. They were created a long time ago. CNPq is 70 years old. CGE, as Professor mentioned, it's more than 20 years old. So each one of these institutions have these attributions very well defined. Sometimes there are some similarities, but there cannot be a conflict between them. Before I came here, I was a professor in the Institute of Engineering, and we have a rivalry with the Air Force Institute of Technology because they are reference of schools in Brazil, but it's a good rivalry. We don't fight because we have to think about it. And we have to make the efforts. This process, we need to align our thoughts. When we talk about sum, we have to direct our actions to have a sum that is positive. It's fundamental to have this work to create the national system of technology and establish a coordination. So all the agencies and us walk the same path. I'm going to show you very briefly, because talking about FINEP, it's unnecessary to talk about it, but it is a public company connected to the Ministry of Science and Technology and Innovation. And we have this chain that focus and it impacts all over Brazil. When we talk about this, we're talking about basic research, applied research, the technological development, and also prototypes and introduction in the market. When we see the maturity levels, the technological ones, FINEP acts in all of these levels. They support universities, laboratories, companies, from basic level to market introduction. So we have had historical projects, CT Infra, that has structured our whole scientific base in the country, programs that support the technological parks, like Secretary Marcelo Morales showed us. They support innovation environments in partnership with the ministry. So we have about 600 million reais for that. We also support entrepreneurship, credit, investment. So the modalities of support, we have support that is not reimbursed for ICTS, for projects, for research. We also have the subvention, economic subvention for companies to innovate, not to export, is to develop technology and innovation. Same with investments and also reimbursement financing for companies, and also funds of venture capital and for companies. This is FINEP. We are in the 26 states and also in the federal district. Today, to propose a reflection, I would like very humbly to try to bring you some thoughts about some challenges that we face when we work in FINEP and we are researchers. One of the challenges that we have to face is bureaucracy. We have an excessive bureaucracy and a business environment that's not very dynamic, that makes difficult that for our work to happen. Oh, but we hear, oh, FINEP is very bureaucratic. They need a lot of documents. I have to say, yes, we are, because we are required by legal devices, and we have this whole system behind us. And if we don't follow protocol, it's complicated. So besides that, we also have a level of the companies and institutions that they have their internal bureaucracy. So when we talk about the SOS equipment, which is for maintenance, the name says SOS equipment. It has to be fast. The resources, we have to have the fast resources. We have to do the maintenance of equipment that is stopped. Many times we take months, 1, 2, 3 months to be able to sign the consortium, because we have internal difficulties in the universities, in the institutions. So we take a long time because of bureaucracy, because of the legal system, because of the institutions. So FINEP tries to work with some other alternatives. So we implemented the program Zero Paper. Now we don't have any other report in paper. We have to digitalize everything. And especially after the pandemics, it was impossible to get papers and distribute paper to all the people that were working from home. So now everything, all the documents are digital. And we have implemented the digital signature. All of our agreements, all of our documents, they are digitally signed. So if you want to have an agreement with FINEP, you have to have a token or a digital certificate. And we are implementing the new system of non-reimbursable operations. We have a call that is active and is in the system. And this system has some preliminary steps that you have to register the institution. So all of the paper that we sent before, who is the coordinator, this is done previously. This is in this registration, and we're going to save a lot of time to process our calls. Obviously, we're doing this slowly. We're doing this pilot project because we can take the risk of losing an entire call, but soon all of our actions are going to be in the system. When we talk about changing the focus now to infrastructure, research infrastructure, because this is very important and we are the main agency for that. We go back to 2016 that has gathered that most of our structure here is a small size structure. It is located within the universities. The level of equipment, of structure is of low cost, relatively low cost. There are about 4 researchers in each lab. The workforce in the labs, especially with master students, doctorate students. So we need specialized workforce. So the ministry created this platform, this national platform for research infrastructure. We need to identify where is the equipment. So many times we have labs that are asking for the same equipment instead of sharing this. So this is important, and we have this platform. And FINEP is acting in the infrastructure. So the institutions have to be registered in this platform.
And regarding the research centers, it is quite amazing that our labs and our technological parks are very cross-cutting. And we have a low level of specialization. So there are few of these centers. Sometimes a person ends a master's degree, a doctor's degree. If in an institution, they go and teach in an institution, they replicate the same type of research they used to do in the previous institution. So thinking about that, we are structuring with the ministry a program to support specialized centers. So we would constitute advanced centers that will give differentiation and specialty to some technological areas. So we are structuring a high-level committee to advise involving CNPq and several other institutions of the productive and academic sectors. We have Embrapa, INPE, Fiocruz. We see the results of this specialization. So we have other centers. And talking about infrastructure, a challenge that we have is management. When we carried out a diagnosis, an assessment, we saw that 85% of the works that we financed in FINEP took over 5 years to be ready after the first release of resources. Even though they received the resources, the funds, it took over 5 years. So the planning of works was not adequate. It took long, and the difficulties in management of institutions ended up by making us have to request some counterparts, such as presenting an executive project for the works. In 2020, we had a call for executive projects, but you know, we also financed some executive projects. We don't have calls for works this year, but when we do have it, it is going to be open for many to participate. One other point that is relevant is post-graduation. We have CNPq, and we see that there has been a major effort of Brazil as of 2001 regarding post-graduation courses and the number of graduates and postgraduates increasing very much, even at a level higher than abroad. But where are they? The CGE carried out a survey, indicated that we have around 1/3 of our masters are unemployed, and 1/4 of our doctors are unemployed. 35% for masters and 25% of doctors unemployed. So we are qualifying excellent human capital. We even have brain drain, people going abroad. But also because they have few opportunities of jobs here in Brazil. So we are supporting innovative entrepreneurship. Because these masters and doctors need to focus on entrepreneurship as well, and not only look for jobs in public institutions or universities. They can generate added value to Brazil and to themselves. So, so that we have the FAPs in the states, and we can support, right? So if you have an idea, you can receive funds to create your prototype of a project of a company. The same for prototypes. And we have Tecnova, and they are structured, they need leverage in terms of investment. We have FINEP Startup, investing in companies. If it is a bit further, the startup can have credit lines, then we NovaCred. And other initiatives such as Innovative Women, for example, encouraging entrepreneurship among women in Brazil. We are structuring for the yearly plan for 2022, encouraging entrepreneurship, and also the consolidated idea of technologies that are consolidated and with a research group that is producing, but is still inside ICT. This is the transition to the market and give the proper conditions for entrepreneurs to have resources to do that. This is the spin-off program. I think I'm late. I'm speaking very fast because of the time that I was given, but this is the message from FINEP. Together, we're going to transform Brazil through innovation. This is a sentence that we need to have in mind when we think about the system of science, technology, and innovation. It needs to be together, working together. Thank you, Evaldo. Thank you all.
Bortolini, eu nunca vi você
Bortolini, you're never late. You are military approach.
Mas a Mariana me lembrou aqui que o seminário está sendo.
Well, the seminar, Mariana just mentioned that questions should be done through the website. We are not accepting questions on open questions because we don't have the time for that. We're going to have 7 minutes break because there's pão de queijo, cheesy balls, cheesy bread. So, cheese. And we're going to have some coffee, a coffee break. And then we go to our last roundtable, the future of CNPq. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Bom, Cláudia? Oh, professora Helena, que bom vê-la, que bom.
Oi,
te
Cláudia,
ver também.
Tudo bom, Paulo? Tudo ótimo?
Tudo, estamos indo.
Ô, Helena, a gente deveria ter sincronizado as nossas falas, né? Eu não sei o que você vai falar.
Eu vou
Mas não dá tempo
colocar...
mais. É tanto evento que não dá
Agora,
tempo de sincronizar.
o que eu fiz foi... Eu sabia que todo mundo ia falar muito do que estamos. Eu trouxe como é que está a discussão no mundo.
Boa!
Trouxe algumas coisas da Inglaterra, Estados Unidos.
Que legal! Boa abordagem.
Eu trouxe algumas coisas por aí, que eu não sabia por onde pegar, né? Muita coisa, e muito pouco. De manhã eu estava na China, na reunião dos BRICS.
Eu estava ontem.
Pois é, eu sei.
E você viu,
muito
Helena,
boa, hein?
saiu uma chamada conjunta China National Science.
Boa tarde. Vamos retomar agora a transmissão ao vivo do seminário 70 anos de CNPq.
Good afternoon. We're going to continue our seminar of 70 years of CNPq, past, present, and future, thinking and transforming Brazil. To be at the table, compose the table for debate with the theme of future of CNPq. We invite the presence here in our auditorium, Professor Carlos Alberto, that's going to be the moderator. He's the Director of Exact Sciences in CNPq. Professor Evaldo Ferreira, President of CNPq. Professor Fábio Guedes, Executive Secretary of ICTP-BR. The President of the Association of the Civil Servants of CNPq, Roberto Muniz. And we have remotely participating with us, Helena Binader, Vice President of ABC, and Paulo Artacho, the Vice President of SBPC. Before we start, we're going to do the launching of the 8th video of Science Generates Development of the Brazilian Academy of Science. This video celebrates the life of Cesar Lax, one of the greatest Brazilian scientists and a symbol for Brazil. And it's the inspiration to name the platform of CNPq the largest curriculum base, the platform Lattes. No, Cesar Lattes. the Brazilian that made one of the greatest discovery of physics. He was born in 1924 in Curitiba, and he was graduated in physics and mathematics when he was 19 years old in the University of São Paulo. In 1946, he went to England to work in a project led by the physicist Cecil Powell in a research that seek to detect particles of the atom. At that time, it was understood that the atom was formed by electrons and protons, which were positive, and neutrons, which had no charge. And they understood that the opposites attract, and the ones that were similar, they repelled each other. But this scientist, Hideki Ikawa, said that this wasn't sufficient because of another particle called meson pi or pi. But so far, nobody was able to prove the existence. So they had many ions that were captured in high altitudes, and he took photograph plates to the Mount Chacaltaya in Bolivia, and he proved the existence of pi, and for the first time, a mark for science that resulted in 2 Nobel Prizes in physics, one for Powell and for Tanaka. In Brazil, he was a member of the Brazilian Academy of Science, ABC, and co-creator of the National Council of Science and Technology, CNPq, that in 1999 honored him, giving his name to the platform Lattes, which has millions of students and researchers in Brazil and in the world that are registered there. He passed away in 2005, and he defended throughout his career the investment in research transforms society. See how national science is capable of impacting the world? Science generates development. Share this idea.
Com a palavra agora, o moderador da mesa.
The floor now is the moderator, Luiz Carlos Alberto Pereira dos Santos. Good afternoon. After this video, we'll get even more excited and motivated. Good afternoon to you all here. Good afternoon to everyone who is home through our social media. Good afternoon to all of our guests in this round table. Well, this round table is the last event of a series of events that CNPq has organized and is organizing that started in 2021. And in particular, today, we had many activities, very enriching ones. We have learned so much from them, and we are documenting this. We've had many reflections, many outlooks, and now we're here in this last round table for this very significant theme. And this table is composed of our guests, Evaldo Ferreira Vilela, the president of CNPq, Helena Binader, who is participating with us remotely. She's the vice president of ABC. Paulo Artacho is remotely participating. He's the vice president of SBPC. Fábio Guedes, the executive secretary of ICTP.br, and Roberto Muniz, the president of the Association of the Civil Servants of CNPq. As I said to you, we have had in these past 2 days very enriching activities such as the launching of magazine Q. It's very interesting, which celebrates the 70 years of CNPq. The main lecture from Professor Walter Leal from the UC Davis University. He brought to us a perspective on how the system works in other parts of the world, particularly in the United States. And we've had 5 roundtables. This is our 6th roundtable, where we have discussed and debated the operation of CNPq in the sector of technology. For table 2, we discussed about the role, about the foment to research, and among other things. We have presented the projects and mobilizing actions of CNPq, also the actions of international actions of CNPq, and the previous roundtable was to talk about the National System of Science, Technology, and Innovation. Well, before we really start our discussion and we give the floor to our guests, I want to thank you all for your availability to be part of this. It is you certainly are going to enrich this table. You're going to bring many reflections and many opinions that could guide CNPq from now on. Okay, but before giving you the floor, I would like to go back a little in the past and talk a little bit about what was the context, what was the atmosphere that permeated the country and the world when the idea of a state agency was born, the CNPq. This was very well put by Professor Claudia de Toledo in the previous roundtable. But our context is after the World War II. It recently ended, where the countries noticed the importance of the state to have a creation of institutions for science. And this was true for Brazil at the time as well, and also for nuclear energy at the time. That became the key theme for national development in Brazil. So this was the context around the creation of CNPq. Here we see a picture of the special commission that was set up to elaborate a bill to create this state agency in the country. In the government of Eurico Gaspar Dutra from 1946 to 1951. Well, on the eve of the last term of Getúlio Vargas, this law was sanctioned. Finally, it created the CNPq, the law 1390 that created the CNPq. A person that was very important was Almirante Alberto, which became the first president of CNPq. And according to his own words, this law, which created CNPq, represented the golden law of Brazil. So you see the first meeting of the council in 1951. So CNPq was born in Rio de Janeiro. His first headquarters was in Rio de Janeiro, and it was born already sending the first scholarship students abroad. But not only that, it created and structured many research institutions in the country. The Pure and Applied Mathematics Institute in 1952, the Amazon Institute of Research in 1952 as well, and the Bibliographic and Documentation Institution, IBBD, in 1954, and created the Atomic Energy Institution in 1956. In 1960, I'm going to excuse myself because we have listed just some references from each decade, just to give you this idea of time evolution. but we don't want to extend ourselves. There were a lot of important things that were not listed here, but in the 60s, CNPq became the responsible for the formulation, the political and technological scientific and technological policy in Brazil through the law 4533 in 64. And then we created the FNDCT. In the 70s, there was the transfer of the headquarters from Rio de Janeiro to Brasília. And the change of the name from the National Council of Research for the current name, the National Council for Scientific and Technological Development, in 1974. And we kept the acronym CNPq. In this decade, it was created the award José Reis, and the advisory committees were created. In the 80s, it was created the Young Scientist Award. Also, in 1985, the Ministry of Science and Technology was created, and it was the central body of science and technology in the country. Also, the institutional program for scholarships of scientific initiation was created, PBIC. CNPq was a pioneer to do the digital transformation here in Brazil. Internet was just beginning there, but we created the platform Lattes and the directorship for the research groups. It was very important for us, and we created a program for ecological research. Also, in 2000, for the informatization continued, and we had the scientific foment with the creation of the integrated platform Carlos Chagas. Also, in 2000, the creation of Institution of Science, Technology, and Innovation Institutes. In 2010, we had the change, the headquarters changed to this current building, where we gather all the bodies, all the areas of the agency. And also, we had many challenges, and CNPq sent about 101,000 scholarship students abroad with the Science Without Borders, with CAPES. Okay, taking a look, after we take a look back at all of these things that have happened, I want to ask our guests, and now, from now on, what do we do so we can prosper? What kind of future do we want for CNPq? So, let's start with Professor Evaldo Vilela, the director of CNPq. He is a doctor in chemical ecology from Southampton. He is a professor from University of Viçosa. He's a researcher from CNPq and member of ABC, ex-president of CONFAP, and many, many other things. Right, Professor? Yes. Please feel free. Thank you very much. Thank you, Carlos. I want to say hello to everyone who is here, and starting with Helena Nade. She's our reference as a woman in science, as a scientist, and now she's going to be the first woman president of CNPq. We listen to this a lot, and she has to be the first one to speak here. But I have something to do at 6 o'clock, so I'm gonna run here. And I would like to thank Helena for everything that she does here. and also the Vice President of SBPC, Professor Paulo Artacho. Thank you so much for being here. Fábio Guedes, the brother of CONFAP. We've worked together for a long time, and the foundation, and I'm very happy to have you here. Roberto Muniz of our union. Here at CNPq, we talk a lot. Sometimes we're not on the same page, but we talk, right? And this is necessary. And I want to thank everyone who is here. And I want to salute you, everyone who is here. Also, everyone who is joining us remotely, who is here. And also, I'm very pleased to be here with the Brazilian Science Academy. It was very nice. It was very rich today, yesterday. It's very important sometimes to stop and reflect. I am talking to Mariana so we can transform this and have a summary of everything that has happened today. And ending now with this table, which is so important. And also have videos with this, with some parts of this seminar for those who don't like to read and prefer to watch videos, usually the youth. Because we need to show that CNPq is alive, is working the best way possible, facing challenges and menaces, and taking advantage of the opportunities serving the science in Brazil, and of course, at our disposal. I want to be very brief here. We have a lot to say, but I'm gonna spare you to talk a lot, from talking a lot, and I'm gonna try to be as objective as possible. I don't know if I'm gonna be successful in being brief, but I'm gonna be emphatic because we are already in the future. The Brazilian Science Academy said the future is now, and this is true. We don't have that kind of future where we keep forecasting. We are in the future. The future is now. So to have a context here, it's CNPq. No nation, no other nation in the world can achieve the sovereignty without economy. And for that, it needs new knowledge. It needs knowledge and new knowledge. And then it takes us the importance of science in these current times. Always. When it was not called science before, but the capacity to develop knowledge and transform knowledge into products, services, processes, innovative ones that is evident in the world as we've never seen before.
In terms of future, we need to pay a special attention to guide, because it is a guiding kind of institution, because we have promotion, and that's who promotes the large transformations. And we need further efforts in human sciences and social sciences. Technologies are there, they are doing what they are doing, but the power of technology, of societal disruption is major. And we do not vote to have a WhatsApp like this or like that. Who looks after that? Is sociology, anthropology, all areas of social and human sciences.
Final aqui, fazendo uma
And
referência
I would like to conclude by making a reference to this issue of multidisciplinarity, that we need to have. The networks, they are essential. But I think that regarding social sciences, we need to understand things. So the future of CNPq goes through this path of creating understanding. We do not need any more conflicts. We have enough conflicts. And the capacity of CNPq to generate understanding is major for its utility for the future, for its usefulness. And all countries need that. And it is CNPq that is going to guide science here in Brazil. We have this agency, 70 years of services provided to the community of science, technology, and innovation. And Carlos mentioned a few points about the past of CNPq, and it's the role of CNPq is well trustworthy, and it gives us the credibility for us to say we will not have a country that is sovereign with capacity to cater for the needs of their of its population, to face inequalities without CNPq. CNPq is part of the future of the country. And here we are working for CNPq to see the future, and so that we can, as directors and academic the scientific community, to include in CNPq's future the notion of it being together with CAPES and other partners to lead us to the future. CNPq is the only agency in the country that is able to get 15,000 of the best researchers in Brazil online in 2 weeks. They have a quality seal by CNPq. If the minister says, I want a team of 3,000 researchers, I mean, we don't even need a week to do that, to gather them. So in addition to building a path towards understanding, there are so many other important things. We don't need any more conflicts in our path. And CNPq, to that effect, needs to realize that the threat to the future of CNPq is human resources. They are being reduced, and we need to reinvigorate these human resources somehow. And the other point is resources. Of course, we need funding. What is missing for CNPq to have funds and resources that allows for greater contribution? In my opinion, it is the lack of focus of Brazil regarding where it wants to be. We never had this focus as a country to be a country that can cater for all Brazilians. It And what happens is that without this focus, anything will do. And CNPq is the contribution of science. The US wanted to go to the moon, and it became a nation. We want to go. Do we want to go to the moon? Where do we want to go? Because when you know where you want to go, science is predominant for this to happen. So I want CNPq as part of a better future for our country. I'd like to thank you, Carlos. And I'd like to say to all of you that we are going to have a legacy of this seminar. It is a crucial moment to CNPq for us to have better guidance regarding its future and the future of the country. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Evaldo Vilela, President of CNPq, about your view on the future of CNPq. So, now moving forward, we would like to invite Professor Helena Nader, Doctor in Molecular Biology. She is
dentre outros prêmios e honrarias, é membro da
She's a member of the World Academy of Science for the advancement of science in developing countries, the National Order of Scientific Merit. She's the Vice President of ABC, and after the next week, she is going to be the president, the first woman to be the president of ABC. Thank you for being here with us and to participate with us in this important moment of celebration of 70 years of CNPq. So the floor is yours. Thank you. I brought some images to help the discussion. I'd like to thank you and Professor Evaldo, to salute all in this round table, Fábio, Alberto, Paulo Cartacho. And also I'd like to say it is an honor being here on this table about the future of CNPq. I decided I will bring a few concepts that I find important. And I will not talk about the past because it has been quite well discussed. And the importance of CNPq has been thoroughly discussed as well. However, we need to remember that CNPq carried out a role that was crucial because until the creation of the ministry, CNPq used to be the focus of discussion about Brazilian science, technology, and innovation. So Professor Evaldo has brought some insights, and I will bring a few more. So let us remember that while Brazil does not accept that science is the drive of the economy, if Brazil does not consider education and science as key for development, and if we do not have adequate ongoing financing, we are going to continue having the crisis that we have experienced in the last recent years. It is very sad to see that financing today for science, technology, and innovation is very much dependent on FNDCT. FNDCT used to be a plus. Unfortunately, now it is the main funding. This is the first challenge of CNPq, in my opinion, and society as a whole. If we are able to convince National Congress and the government, the executive, about the importance of science and the financing it needs to receive. The budget of the ministry was significantly reduced. If we look at the budget law for 2022, we're talking about 1/12 of FNDCT every month. And why is this important? What's happening? It has been 22 years. We are inside the 21st century. So we are 22 years ahead. We know that we talk about this knowledge society, and it needs to be structured based on knowledge. This developed and updated, representing new systems to support quality of life. It implies the need of a comprehension of the distribution of knowledge, access to information, and ability to transfer information into knowledge. The understanding of knowledge is a central challenge in the definition of society, of knowledge, of a knowledge society. And they are based, these societies, in 4 pillars: freedom of expression, universal access to information and knowledge, respect for linguistic and cultural diversity, and quality education for all. Freedom and responsibility of science in the 21st century. This has changed. Technological and social development influence profoundly the way science is practiced, requiring a re-evaluation of our fundamental principle of freedom and responsibility in science. For example, big data. We have a lot of data. How are we going to treat them? How do we build accountability around these actions? Also, I'd like to mention a problem that is happening in Brazil and in the world: the politicization of science. Many challenges are faced, but politicization is too present. And what is true is not being valued, and research is being politicized. Today, we are going to have Paulo Artacho. He is a major authority in the world about climate change. And we know about everything that has been said about medication and etc. So I looked around in the world and I saw that the CNPq that we created, that it was transformed. And today it has CAs and several areas of knowledge. Is this CNPq that we want in the 21st century?
With themes and areas that don't have any communication. So I brought here the National Science Foundation. It is the same age as CNPq, and I went to see how is their structure. And they are divided into 7 sections. They have a director, a scientific director, and these sections have vice directors. They have biological sciences, informatics, engineering, geosciences, mathematical and physics sciences, social sciences, and behavioral and economics, and education and human sciences. For example, biological sciences. What are they studying? What are they seeing? The biological infrastructure, environmental biology, emerging frontiers, the integrative organismal systems, molecular and cellular biosciences. They have an area dedicated for education and human resources, graduate, funding of research, research on learning in formal and informal settings, undergraduate education, and human development. For example, for mathematics, they have mathematical and physical sciences together, and they take a look at astronomical sciences, chemistry, materials research, mathematical sciences, physics, and etc. So some examples. I'm not saying that we have to do that, but we have to see how the world is structuring itself. I went to see France with INSERM. They have 2 institutes. They have CNRS, and they have the National Institute of Health and Medical Research. They have 11 areas who are molecular bases in life structure, cellular biology, development and evolution, cancer, genetics, genomics, and bioinformatics, immunology, inflammation, infectology, and microbiology, neurosciences, cognitive sciences, neurology, and psychiatry, physiopathology, metabolism, nutrition, public health, and health technologies. And they have, if I'm not mistaken, they are more than 90 years old. Yes. They also have the National Center for Scientific Research, and this is 90 years old. They are divided into 10 institutes: chemistry, environmental physics, nuclear physics, biological sciences, human and social sciences, informatics sciences, engineering, system science, mathematical sciences, and also earth and astronomy science. Germany, the main organization, which is the German Research Foundation, I don't even say it, the name in German. There are a lot of consonants, and it would go bad for me. It's an independent organization of research and science in Germany that funds all science areas and humanities. It is an organization. It's a private law association. And look what is interesting here is that I didn't know about these details. They are universities, German universities, non-university research institutions, scientific associations, and also the Science and Humanity Academia. They get funds from the federal government and the states, and they get together and they have regulations to distribute that, and they're all based in science, these decisions. They support projects of all areas and humanities, and especially they promote cooperation between the researchers, among the researchers. They finance a number of initiatives. And this is something that is lacking here in Brazil. We need international initiatives. Brazil is closed. And we have, CNPq has to look at it. And when we really intensify the international collaboration, this is important. All the areas are important. And this is something else that is very interesting. Not just science, but also they fund institutions such as museums, music academies, hospitals, and also PPPs. The United Kingdom went through a complete restructuring, including in the universities, but I didn't bring this here. But how was this made? It has restructured all institutions related to innovation research. It created a big apex body where they have 5 committees, 5 councils, and they have research and innovation in England. So they have a council of research in arts and humanities that finances research that are original in all varieties of arts and humanities. They also have one in biotechnology and biological sciences. So they also have an economic and social research council. Also in engineering and physical sciences, and also have the medical research council. They also have the Natural Environment Research Council, and then they have a council that takes care of all the facilities for science infrastructure. They have many. They have many campi. I am a user of these centers in England. Then, besides these 7 centers, they have the so-called Research England, which is guided towards specifically the high-level teaching, the English high-level teaching, and they seek to finance the research and interchange of this knowledge. And then the innovative action would be FINEP for us, which is called Innovative UK. Let me stop sharing this. And then, to conclude, because of the time, I would like to say what I expect from CNPq. And it's not CNPq. I know that a lot of people are not going to like what I'm going to say, but if we, as a scientific community, want to continue in the 21st century, I want to know if we have the right to prevent that the 21st century comes. We have to gather the whole community, so together we can find how CNPq has to be in the 21st century. CNPq is the one who brought us here. Without it, there would be no Ministry of Science and Technology, because it has created the basis. Today, we have the ministry, we have other agencies. So, which is the model that we, scientific community, is going to help to build for the 21st century? I see this as a challenge. I agree with our director, Professor Carlos, but it's not easy, Professor. It's not easy because our tendency is to let things the way they are, because we are used to that. So what we see, unfortunately, it's a tendency to increase the disciplinarity and less the disciplinarity among them, the interdisciplinarity. We have to take another look at science in the 21st century. We have to answer to society. That's what I wanted to say, and I'm sorry for if I went over the time. So we'd like to thank the wonderful presentation once more from Professor Helena Nade. She's the Vice President of ABC, and her speech was very provocative with many examples, yes. And we like that because that's exactly the way it is. Now we invite Fábio Guedes, has a doctor's degree in administration by FAO, among other institutions, and he represented CONFAP and CGE. Now he is the executive secretary for the Initiative of Science and Technology in the ICTP.br. Thank you very much for your time, for your participation here. And we'd like to hear your reflections and we'd like to hear what do you think about the CNPq in the future. Thank you very much, Carlos. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to salute Professor Vilela and everyone here. And thank you for the opportunity and to be here in the celebration of 70 years of CNPq. It is a privilege to us. If you don't know, ICTP it gathers CONFAP, the ABC, the CONSEC, and other institutions. And it was created in 2019. It's going to be 3 years old. What is that? Next to 70 years of CNPq. But we have made some very important decisions. And we have, for example, Professor Helena here, which is the Vice President of ABC, the future President of ABC, Paulo Artacho, President of ABC, Professor Adi, and other presidents of FAPs that represent CONFAP. So I am very pleased to be here with you and with the employees from CNPq represented by Muniz, and also virtually, remotely. We are very pleased to be in the social media of CNPq. So I prepared the presentations because to talk about the future, I was joking with Professor Turk. And the future, we only have two categories that treat about the future. So we have supernatural regions or economists that deal with that. So I think that the majority don't believe in supernatural things, and also economists. As an economist, I suffer from this. So I have this presentation, and I tried to take a look at the past. What we can expect for the future. So I was coordinating the international cooperation with Professor Galizio. I saw how he deals with the words present, past, present, and future. I see that the future was always a part of the process in this project of CNPq. When I was reading this sentence and I was reading some testimonies, I chose a method to treat the future is to read the past. And treating the past within a context of, let's say, this is the sentence from Professor Galizio. He plays with the future, past, present. And it's such a current sentence. It was written in 2001. So to work with the future, I really like the concept of Fernando Brandel. It's a professor of social sciences in Paris, and he works with time with three categories: with daily and the situation and the structure time. So from the book that you can see there. So the daily life is the time of the regular citizen, the person that needs to work every day. They have real problems. And time for him or her, it's what is he gonna do this week? The time of the situation is the medium term. For example, the macroeconomic politics in Brazil, how they work, the political cycle, and also the time of the structures. The time that the nations think about the future in a more systematic way, like China, South Korea, Germany, Japan. However, science and technology works with these three concepts of time. And Professor Evaldo has mentioned here, others also have talked about the main problems in Brazilian society, those who afflict the common regular citizen. So we have the time of the situations as the COVID, for example. This brought a fantastic aporia to society with reflexes for the future, and the time of structures that Professor Elena told us about, the role of science in this process. And here I have used these authors or former presidents of CNPq who have contributed so much to this institution, and I conduct this study. I read this book of 50 years of CNPq very, very fast. Those of you who want to know the history of CNPq, the dilemmas of the Brazilian society related to science and technology, you have to read these testimonies. They are very, very rich. And then I studied the main presidents from the 80s to so far, from now on, from the 80s until now. And then you're going to have Roberto Santos, the governor of Bahia, Gerard, Maris Guia, Mirra, Esper, Galizia, Rodovaldo Pavan, Bressa, which was an economist. Maybe he brought some traumas to CNPq. But as Professor Luis Davidoff has mentioned yesterday, from these ex-presidents' reflections, I could take a look and I can see that they concentrate their opinions and evaluations in the following axes: low recognition from political class, financial and budget difficulties that all of them had, all of them. The situation now, it's a little bit more comfortable than the past. CNPq had some moments that they couldn't pay any support subsidies to science. And I think it was in Marius Guia that he asked FATESPA or FATEMIG to pay the researchers in São Paulo and Minas because they didn't have any money. I don't think that we have reached this point. So this is, you see, Professor Evaldo is very persistent. Maris Guia had the participation in the FATESMIG. And what is the role of FATEMIG? FATEMIG is doing well. It's doing better than 20 years back. Now it's managed by a professor in Viçosa. And they're very proactive. he's going to have a lot of work in financing. Ah, but I like work. I like to work. So lack of political recognition. You see, Roberto Santos, Mirra, for example. The Brazilian society doesn't know everything that the country does and already did for science and technology. The essential matter resides in the current culture among politicals, technocrats, and entrepreneurs. The scientific investigation and technology is not but perfume. Yes, there is a conscious in the high levels of government. Many of them think that we're not doing anything so important. And Leonardo Cavalcante, he notices packs of delay, lack of capacity to value knowledge. So what the scientific community does, what kind of instruments and means the scientific community has. So they don't know about it. The budget and financial difficulties, they all suffer from that, as I said. Minister Goldenberg, in 1990, he had an illusion with the government promises, and he left a doubt of $70 million, and the budget was only $15 million. So he had a meeting for SBPC, and he proposed to cut the resources from 70 to 15 million. It was a linear option. So, and it was done. And I say something very important. We are pressured by, we run the institutions, and we know the priority of the government: health, education, security. The dialogue with the treasury ministry and with the ministries, it's fundamental to have this dialogue. It's hard to talk to the treasury ministry. They don't understand the science and technology in the country. Did it change? No, it didn't. The Ministry of Economy. Well, science is economy, right? All of those who had scholarships don't acknowledge that. They got scholarships from CNPq or CAPS. We understand that science is important, but it's important to show the monetary fund that we're doing science. And today, this development is more important than before. Let's ask for more answers from IMF. From the point of view of budget difficulties, Clodovaldo says, we are going to continue in the subdevelopment. Sarney had a project to give 2% to the area, but it didn't reach 0.6. So we have a little bit more than 1% now. And Clodovaldo said, the Brazilian scientists demonstrated their competence, reaching international success every time they received support. Unfortunately, our economists don't believe in that and don't facilitate new investments for the sector. I know that probably I will be canceled by my council, my economy council. No problem. The science is still interdisciplinary. So this is what we have to do nowadays. And after that, we had 8 presidents. He said a data is the approved budget, and another one is how much we can get financially. The fight starts with budgets, And then it continues after the budget, which is even worse. And then Linaldo also shows us about the scholarships. Look at the dilemma. We don't have a readjustment for 9 years. The states are doing great effort to increase the value of the scholarships. But in this matter, without readjustments for 6 years, it is very difficult for a person to dedicate himself or herself to the work. And this shows that the Brazilian scientist doesn't give importance to the science. After 13 years of the Constitution at the time, when this testimony was given, the permission to regulate scientific matters, and many states in Alagoas, Rio Grande do Sul, the Brazilian society don't ask for the government and for the institutions, for the academy. They don't ask for the support. And if we have to think about a CNPq in the future, we have to think about financial links to give them a permanent situation. Oh, but IMF, the multilateral organisms will not allow this. Why can't Brazilian society do that? Why can't São Paulo do it? They are a model for experience to foment the science, the Brazilian science, and also to fulfill the needs of the science in Brazil. And São Paulo is at the forefront of this.
And another thing is the role of the scientist as a manager in the policy. We talk about the administrator in this area need to go around. They need to have a lot of contact, especially with the National Congress, to help and collaborate with the agencies through entities and trying to speak to congressmen and women, and also the resources, about resources and about the allocation of such resources. So having appropriate funds for their entities. It is important that in CNPq we should not have political concessions, because it is a state-level institution. Because the president and the directorate or the board should have fixed mandates. This is quite interesting. This is also something for the future of CNPq. Tundizi says that the president of CNPq is a staff of the government, not only to cater for the academic community, because it should have the role, or the president should have the role of developing policies, strategies for the government and for the country as well. And the low level of relationship between science and the business world. We recognize there has been quite a lot of effort by the ministry, FINEP and CNPq, all have tried to change this reality, because knowledge should produce wealth and also new perspectives for the labor market. So they all mention the same. Another word by Galizia Tundizi. CNPq has oscillated between being an agency for strategic and technological development and for the development of the country, and an agency just to support the scientific community. And that's it. But it plays a crucial role in the Brazilian economy. This is very important. And I drew this table. Agencies, what's the mission of CNPq? And you can see it here regarding all the different presidents. It can be an agency for strategic and technological development, support to scientific research, development and promotion, and induction versus spontaneous demand. I mean, we need all that to be present. We do need that. And we need to call upon the scientific community to collaborate with the country and also cater for different demands. And also we have the balance. We have Pavan, Lindolfo Carvalho, Mirra. Even Bresser used to say that. You have to give freedom to researchers. It's economists are like that.
E aí, tá passando? Ah, beleza. Qual o futuro do CNPq?
And what's the future of CNPq? So I need to go to poetry, and I will quote Cazuza. I see the future repeat the past. I see a museum of great novelties. Time does not stop. So this is it. Thank you for 70 years of CNPq. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Executive Secretary, for your insights, your survey. We hope for another 70 years. So would like to invite Dr. Paulo Artacho. He's a doctor in atmospheric physics by USB. He has several awards. He is a member of the World Academy of Science, and also several other honors and positions and awards. Professor Paulo, it's a pleasure being here with you. Thank you for being here with us, discussing the future of CNPq, bringing your insights. The floor is yours. Thank you. This topic is absolutely strategic for Brazilian society. So I will share my screen. And I changed the title of my lecture, of my presentation. And because the future of CNPq needs to be aligned with social, environmental, and economic needs of Brazil. So we need to have evidence-based policy implemented in our country. So I think it is important for us to design a research agenda for CNPq. We need to look at the future of the planet and the country. And for example, 2050, what country do we want? What Brazil do we want in 2050? What are the major challenges society will have along this path until 2050? And a group of researchers worked on that in a group called The World in 2050. and they looked at the necessary change for a world in 2050. First of all, reduce consumption and produce goods and services in a more sustainable manner than we have today. We need to take into account big data, the revolution, the digital revolution, and extraordinary progress that science is making in this area. Our country is changing very quickly, and demography and human capacity, gender equality, labor markets, cities as well. 85% of the population of the world will be urban in 2050. So if we do not find a way for our cities to be more sustainable, forget it. We are never going to be able to build a society that is sustainable. And also the balance between producing foods, the land use and preservation of biodiversity, because it's not going to be easy to feed 10 billion people. So this agenda of the world in 2050 can be easily applied to Brazil, and we need to think about it. What type of science do we want to develop along the next 30 years? Brazil is a signatory of the SDGs, and there is a clear direction and strong direction regarding all the progresses, environmental, economic, and social, that we will need to take upon ourselves. SDG 13, action against global climate change. But without stable climate, all the other SDGs will not be able to be accomplished. And in the last intergovernmental panel for climate change, we could see that Brazil faces important and relevant challenges for the next decades, and science has a lot to contribute in that, both in the administration of water and water resources. They are not as vast as we used to think. Also carbon stocks, biodiversity, social diversity, together with the economy that we have in Brazil. Production of grains, meats, bioenergy, so on and so forth. These vulnerabilities and challenges need to structure and give basis to our research agenda. One other major challenge we're going to face is climate change. This is the map of the last IPCC report, dating back a few years. If we have an increase in Brazil of 3 to 4 degrees in major areas, this may lead to much higher increase of temperature in the Arctic. So we need to think about this and the northeast region of Brazil, and research is necessary. In particular, this map is extremely important, as it brings a question: what future do we want in Brazil? If you look at soil humidity, this is the scenario with 4 degrees increase. So we can see drastic reduction of rains, where they're in areas where there is a lot of agribusiness. So Brazil needs to think about it in a serious way. We need to have a plan to adapt our economy and society to the changes that are already underway in the country as a whole. This slide shows that climate change are no longer a matter of the future. They are a matter of the present. Have a look at the increased temperature in the San Francisco watershed, I beg your pardon. In the east of the Amazon as well. And on the right, we can see in the last decades, this is the past, strong reduction of rainfall in Brazil, in the Northeast, and an increase of this rainfall in the south of Brazil. And this brings about a lot of issues for production and the economy. This is no secret. This is no novelty. This is no news. This was at a report of Embrapa in 2019 showing water deficit in Brazil in different regions. 10 or 15 years ago, we used to see this problem in the Northeast. But have a look at this decade and what is going to happen in the next decade. These regions are going to increase. So Mato Grosso, Goiás, Tocantins, and the main thing is a Brazil that is so dependent on our agribusiness. Will it be viable in the future? What model of development does CNPq would like to help implement in Brazil? We need to answer these questions now so that we can have long-term planning and have policies to implement an agenda that can make Brazil more sustainable. For example, this map was of the global risk in the World Economic Forum 2016. Have a look at the reduction in agricultural production or productivity. Brazil, in particular, is very sensitive to climate change. I think economic sectors have not yet fully understood that. The same for Brazilian science. The other question is, Brazil would like to achieve the net zero situation by 2050. It is very easy to say that, but it's hard to do. We need to have a path, planning in order to do that. Brazil signed a commitment in COP26, and it is not easy because the Amazon is critical for this issue, because it is a reservoir of 10 years of burning in the country, in the whole of the country. So what happens to the Amazon is critical to what's going to happen to the planet in the future. So the Amazon impacts the global climate, reduction in rainfall, and climate change impacts carbon stocks in the Amazon. So exploiting or exploring the next 3 decades is essential. There's no point Brazil stopping deforestation by 2028 if other countries don't do what they need to do, because the forest is going to degrade and it's going to be a source of carbon to the global atmosphere. And we need a lot of science to understand these links and chains between the sustainability of our country and the planet. Something obvious is deforestation in the Amazon, which is still growing a lot. Brazil And last year, deforested 13,000 square kilometers of forests. Obviously, this is unthinkable in a planet undergoing climate change, being threatened by climate change. It is there already. The Amazon is a huge processor of water vapor, and it has to do with the Brazilian agribusiness. So destroying the Amazon, as we're doing currently, is something that is only going to bring problems to us. This is now being understood, and the implication of these issues are very important to Brazil as a whole.
Another important thing is the increase of extreme climatic events in all over the planet. We've seen the landslides in Paraty, Minas Gerais, Bahia. These are bringing social and economic harm that are huge. And we've had in Canada almost 48 degrees Celsius, 52 degrees in California. Is this what we want for the future? How can we develop a science that can take the country to extreme climatic events, less extreme, less serious than what we have today? These are very important. And in case of Brazil, who has more than 8,000 kilometers of sea coast, the rise of the sea level is something that this menace is very important. And we forecast that the sea levels can rise up to 1.5 meters. And this is very important if we think about our ports, our coast cities. Imagine the economic impacts that could have, and to adapt the cities to this, that will continue independently if we fight this. This is so important for Brazilian science. And now it's important for Brazil to notice that we have a lot of climate pacts. So we want to zero the deforestation of Amazon up to 2028, reducing 50% the carbon emissions up to 2030. See, do we have the necessary policies to implement these commitments that Brazil has already signed? We have to reduce the emissions of methane gas up to 30% until 2030, and also be zero carbon emission up to 2050. These are very hard commitments to be made and to fulfill. So we need the science, technology, and innovation, because we need to develop research that will generate solutions that take into consideration jobs, income, well-being, and also social inclusion in all the areas. And at the same time, to build a more resilient society to the climate change. That is one of the greatest challenges that we have today. And Brazil has opportunities that no other country has. It's important to notice that. From the point of view of emissions of greenhouse gases, more than 44% come from the deforestation of Amazon, and they are associated with the agriculture and cattle raising in Brazil. No other country have this. So this can be done. This can be done much more cheaper than to reduce the deforestation in Brazil. It's an opportunity that Brazil is missing. This is a golden opportunity to show the country that we have what it takes to reduce the greenhouse gases. greenhouse gas emissions, and we're not exploring that. And it is very important to notice that in this report, they put explicitly that there are already options that we can do today in all the sectors of the economy for at least reduce emissions by half by 2030. And for the energy service, wind and solar, land use, efficiency in the industry, the urban issues, to build more resilient cities, and so on. So we have already the technology. Now we need public policies that implement this technology and prevent those scenarios that we saw. So to end, it is critical that we notice that we are here in 2022, and Brazil, as all the other nations in our planet, it will have to choose a path. Do we want something of high climatic resiliency, lower impacts on the social and the social and economic terms in our country? Or is the trajectory that we are taking today of high vulnerability, high poverty, hunger, difficulties to produce food, is that what we want? So this is a choice. Each society and the planet as a whole will have to make this choice. And the perspectives for research for the next 20, 30 years, they have to be directed to these choices for that our society is deciding right now. And now I put what Helena Nader said already, that for a need of a science which is more multidisciplinary, more integrated in society. Let's not divide science into many disciplines, because nature doesn't know these divisions that our agencies do and that our universities do. We need more integrated science and focus in the goals of development of our society. So this is the greatest advance, the great advance that we need in the Brazilian science and also global science. And it's important to notice that we need to have the conscious and build a safer space and a fairer space for our society. Within this circle, we have the basic needs of our society. We always have to take a look at them. Food, gender equality, resilience, education, income, and so on. And in the outer space, we have the physical limitations. So we don't live in a country with endless resources. We have to build a bridge between basic needs of our society and the limits of our planet. So we need a lot of science, of concrete science, to build the space, more fairer, more resilience, and for the society, for Brazilian and global society. So I thank you for the invitation to speak to you. I congratulate CNPq. I am a scholarship holder from CNPq. I was always that, as just like many Brazilian scientists, and we want to give the support so CNPq continues in this trajectory to find sustainability paths for our society. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you. Professor Paulo Artacho, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation and for bringing your vision to us, how CNPq can continue its research for the future. Now, let's have our last guest here for this roundtable, Alberto Luiz de Carvalho, our civil servant here in CNPq. He has a degree in the University of Brasilia. He has acted as Chief of Service and General Coordinator of this council, and now he's the President of the Civil Servants of CNPq. Thank you very much. We are here, and thank you very much for your time. And it's very rich for our discussion here, bringing our perspective or your vision for CNPq of the future. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to say thank you for your invitation from the directorship of CNPq, for our president. Thank you to allowing me to have the participation of civil servants here in this table, because we act in the area. We're part of the national system of science and technology. We don't spend the day pushing buttons in the platform, Carlos Chagas and Lattes. We work daily with the policies and implementation of public policies in the science and technology area. We analyze, we contribute, and it's very important. We are part of this, and we want to talk about this theme that's so important for us, the future of CNPq. The civil servants have a commitment to this house. We call CNPq our home. We are committed to this home. Many times it is known as the house of the scientists, but it is also our home. It is the home for the civil servant that works for the implementation and development of research, science, and technology in the country. I would like to salute the people that compose this table, Professor Helena Nader, that I will consider president of ABC already. She represents the fight for science and technology in our country. So I would like to salute the whole table and everybody that's watching and is joining us today. And of course, what I'm going to present to you today, it's a part of a vision. It's not the only vision among the civil servants, but I think that I will show what part of the civil servants are thinking about CNPq, something that we have always wanted to, we are always trying to do. And then I have this huge responsibility, because part of what was mentioned here, it was already said before. So I saw that we were very aligned with the collocations here. So in this table, we have talked about the future of CNPq, but for the past 2 days, what we have been discussing about science, technology, and CNPq in the last 70 years, there was a lot of convergence. There was some divergence, but I would like to highlight the degree of convergence that we have been having. As Professor Evaldo has mentioned, we work to seek these convergence, some the divergence, and take a step ahead. Our interest is in the future of the institution. And when we defend the future of the institution, we defend the future of the country, the future of CNPq. I would like to take a look at the future, not just from the present, but we have to take a look at the future. We're going to start with the present, and we have to take a look at the past. And we have done that. And I want to take a look at the past a little bit differently than it was done by the other people that were here throughout these past 2 days. First, I want to take the opportunity. I want to talk about a challenge of Professor Mari Chamber, that we have to associate science and art. I think art teaches a lot. Science contributes a lot to art. There are two ways of seeing the world, and I think they have to be convergent. So I got a small text, a small phrase of that. Why can't we just talk about the present? And it says, and let's stay with the smaller rocks, with the smaller kisses from the less courageous mouth. And let's stay with less than half. This is an important view because if we think about what CNPq is now, we are in the worst moments in the history of CNPq. Why? Because we have the smallest budget that we ever had. Maybe we cannot say about the 50s and 60s, but we cannot see this because the CNPq has been reduced and reduced. We cannot have less than half. We don't want those smaller kisses. We want the more audacious kisses. Because we want those passionate kisses because we have passion. We are moved by passion. Because if we think about only the salary, we're not going to do it, anything. But we are fighting for 19% of readjustment, and the government has offered 5%. And we're still here. There was the pandemic, and we're still here. We believe in science. We're passionate about it. So let's take a look at the past. So I'm not going to mention president. I'm not going to mention historical facts. But I want to rescue from the past what CNPq has done. What have we done? What it has dedicated itself to. And then we can think about the future. So it was born as an institution to foment research, right? The initial focus was nuclear energy, but this is a detail. The fundamental characteristic of CNPq, and that still remains, the foment to technology. We're the first agency to foment science and technology in the country. It doesn't matter that we have small budgets. If we have the smaller budget than FATESP, for example, the important thing is a federal agency that takes care of the technology and science foment in Brazil. The second thing that CNPq has been doing is to take care of the infrastructure of research. We have worked daily to fund the lab structure, the buying equipment, and even the creation of equipment. We were the pioneers on that. And now all the institutes that are connected to the Ministry of Science and Technology were created or were under the responsibility of CNPq. We mentioned IMPA Amazônia, and we talked about IBICT, but there were many others. CBPF is not extinct because it came to CNPq. The Astronomic Observatory came to CNPq. One of the most ancient museums in it belonged to CNPq, and we still keep it. So this infrastructure, we are responsible for this infrastructure. So we finance research because the foment is general, but we support the researchers, direct support to the researchers, which is a part of what we do.
Isso não pode ser deixado de colocar. É fundamental. Né? A CAPES tem o papel dela? Tem. E ela faz muito bem. Agora, o CNPq tem que cuidar, e sempre cuidou, de uma formação altamente qualificada para as pessoas, não para atuar na universidade, para ser docente, mas para ser pesquisador, para atuar como pesquisador, para formar pesquisadores. E, por fim, mais dois outros itens que a gente sempre fez, o CNPq foi fundamental na institucionalização da ciência e tecnologia. Ele trouxe para dentro do Estado. A criação do CNPq trouxe, ela marca a institucionalização da ciência e tecnologia no Estado. O que é isso? A partir da criação do CNPq, o Estado brasileiro passou a entender que ele tem responsabilidade, que ele tem dever para o financiamento com a ciência e tecnologia. E, ao longo dos 70 anos do CNPq, ele vem fazendo isso.
And along the years of CNPq, it has been doing that to maintain the role of the state to support research. And lastly, CNPq helped in the creation, maintenance, and increase of and modernization of the science and technology system. And because of that, many states created their FAPs. CNPq helped with that. And Professor Lindau created the ideal conditions for us to create the system for science and technology, aligning the investment to states to strengthen the state level systems of science and technology. And I worked for 10 years in CNPq's Memory Center. I was very happy to see their work in the Memory Center, that we do not have a legislation for science and technology and innovation. We don't have a system, a national system. But we do have it for science and technology. In the 70s, if I'm not sure, at the end of the 70s and 80s, we created this legislation instituting this system. But we now have innovation. And CNPq has a characteristic that no other has: thinking, national promotion. This is not to say that it is, this is to say that it adds to other institutions' work. We need to think like that. And the CNPq helped creating this system. And this is something that I find that is not as well as discussed. CNPq created solid bases in all areas of knowledge, all knowledge areas. We spoke during this seminar that we should focus.
Mas a gente esquece de falar que nós criamos, e são poucos os países que têm como o Brasil, expertise, qualidade.
And we have expertise and quality in all areas. We're not only good in physics or sociology or biotechnology. We do have a basis. I'm not saying we're the best in the world, but we do have the basis. And this gives us competitive advantage in all areas of knowledge. And this needs to be taken into account. We do need to have priorities. Maybe what Professor Guedes mentioned is good. The balance is a consensus. but these priorities need to be built. And it cannot hinder other developments. It is creating priority without exclusion.
Constante diálogo.
And we need to be in constant dialogue
Com toda a sociedade,
with society, and especially about the scientific community. Now, looking at the future, I know we are late, and we need to look at these things, and we need to reflect and think about this. And I share with you, first, we need to build again the backbone of this institution. This is the CNPq of the future.
Pesquisador, pessoa, mas ele
So, we gathered in this house all the staff, and the president said, I am here to break the backbone of CNPq. And the first thing he did was to reduce the attributions of servers, unfortunately. Yes, great advantages were brought as well, but a serious problem was created. He recognized it himself. This backbone are the people who work here every day, not just pressing buttons. So we do need to rebuild this backbone. We do have a serious problem regarding human resources in CNPq. Yes, and he is right, but not only in terms of numbers. We're talking the human resources that need to be highly qualified so that management can be done, planning, and to think about the infrastructure in science and technology. This is actually the very function of my job. I am senior analyst in science and technology. We do need to have staff that is highly qualified. Second, we need to deepen interaction with the academic and scientific communities. We need to do that. Not just counting on CAs. They are essential instruments. They are here to stay. We became a foundation. And I will mention Diogo. He was the president of this house. He introduced the figure of CAs in CNPq. And that was a response to the growth of our community. Before the deliberation council, the community was so small, only 100 researchers, that all allowances were decided in the council and the board. In '74, we could no longer do that. We need to create the CAs, and it was great that that was done, because we need to use them more and more, as we have done it in the past. Not just to say, look, this project has a merit, but for them to help us, as Professor Paulo Artacho mentioned here, we need to work together with community to see what is the best policy for CNPq.
Terceiro, ampliar a nossa escuta.
Increase our listening. But we do need to listen to the community, to the scientific community, and not only that, we need to receive and listen to the demands of society, of the business sector, of the population in general, of social movements. They are also necessary and users of the system. we cannot preach for the faithful. We cannot just talk to researchers for them to think about the demands of society. It is our duty as CNPq also to increase our listening, to broaden our listening. For we need stability. CNPq has no stability. Unfortunately, in these 70 years, we've gone through ups and downs. We are going through a major crisis. This is serious. We have been through other crises. But before the 60s, the CNPq was going to be extinct. There was a project taken to National Congress for CNPq to be extinct. Luckily, the Congress understood the opposite, thanks to action by the community, by servers, and we started to be part of the strategic planning of the country. We are going to overcome this crisis, but they are terrible. We cannot do science and technology in the short term. We cannot research only with doctors' thesis. We need to have continuity in time and financing. So we need stability, budget, stability, people, staff, execution of public policies. And this also takes place through the CNPq. As it needs to resume its autonomy. We are linked to the Ministry of Science and Technology. Yes, but it needs to respect its role of agent, of linked agent, of public agency and proposing policy for this. Each administration disrespects the continuity of policy that should be a policy of state. So we need to talk about autonomy. I'm almost there. We need to invest in evaluation. It's not that we don't do that, but we need to deepen. They need to be systemic. They need to be in all of our actions, not just at the end of the project, but in the perception of programs, projects, in calls. It needs to be present, and we need to evaluate constantly. We need to prospect. This needs to be always there. Prospection, constant evaluation. We need to develop methodologies that are appropriate. We need to reinforce our databases and use them like that. And there is no platform in Latin America with more strategic data than the Lattice platform. It is an example that is a world example. It's a global example. CGEs is publishing more than CNPq. And we need to use that and create methodologies. We cannot be hostages of the control agencies. Pellegrino always says that. It's not just bureaucracy. Yes, there is bureaucracy, but we need to show control agencies that science and technology is not the same as building buildings or schools or thinking about fighting hunger or violence. It's
suas peculiaridades, tá certo? E isso precisa ter.
And this needs to be respected. We need to know that these policies sometimes hinders our development, and we should propose different. This works and this brings results.
a gente precisa ter o CNPq contribuindo para o desenvolvimento nacional e para a redução de desigualdade.
We need to reduce inequalities. CNPq needs to contribute to that. And seventh, we will only be able to do that if we bet on our if we count on our creativity and innovation. And when we think innovation, we think startups and IT. But innovation is, I mean it here in a broad manner, processes, the ideas. So we need that. Otherwise, we're not going to have this future. In a way, this is what I'm proposing here is no different to what CNPq is actually doing. So are you proposing for it to become the same? No, 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 no. We need to improve CNPq with creativity and innovation. This is my contribution. Thank you all very much for your patience. And I ask you to listen to us. It is essential for us to have civil servants as agents, okay, of the Brazilian state and not government. And we are here with the community for the country to grow and develop, and for this development to happen, we need to have science and technology. So we want to go forward. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
President
Roberto Muniz, for your great presentation and for the reality of what we're going through in CNPq at the moment. Thank you. Professor Evaldo needed to leave, and he went to the ministry to talk to the minister, and we're going to continue in our roundtable. Would you like to continue here? Okay, okay. I will summarize what we heard here. Our discussion was very rich. We learned a lot. Even definition of time, future is today. And then certainly we see that CNPq is essential of a system that can take Brazil to a development in all areas. A development that is fair, that it is respectful of people, of the environment, etc. Something else is research in the multidisciplinary aspect of science. Very much we heard that. And also we have this role of inducing certain scientific policies with guidance, especially policies aimed at a more sustainable country. And also I realized that CNPq alone will not be able to do that. Not alone. We need partnership with society in the broad sense. We need to go over with our actions so that society understands and CNPq understands what we do so that it can be valued, helping in this new path.
De questões orçamentárias, de recursos técnicos, né, de servidores, assim por diante.
So we need to value civil servants and staff. This is intertwined with the view of a CNPq that is nationally important, with support of society to develop its actions. Quite a lot. We could compile quite a lot more, but I would like to resume to each one of you for you to have your final contributions, your final remarks. I'd like to thank Professor Vilela, Professor Artacho, Fábio Guedes, Helena Nader, and Fábio Muniz. Thank you all very much. And Helena, your observations and final remarks, please. 5 minutes each. The floor is yours. I will be brief because our participants will have health issues because they've been sitting in this event for too long. And well, first of all, I spoke about my perspective and not of the academia. I only spoke about my position. We are not against CA.
O que eu trago para pensar é, já estamos em 48, até que número nós...
Until what number will we go?
Where the modern comes in. And I think that society needs to have this discussion because there are always requests for more CAs. And if each one of them is going to be fragmented, I want to understand how the world outside can evaluate. But it can't go from up to the bottom. It needs to be from bottom to up. And this is what I wanted to leave you with, because this is not easy. In England, the reform which led to the reform in the university, in the English University for Science, it was done throughout many years and with many discussions, including things that CNPq has already introduced. When you evaluate the universities, you see that a lot of people are not producing. And then you just hide the person. The person disappears. And sometimes it is due to pregnancy, in case of women, due to illness. So the reform of the English university took everything into consideration. So it is time. We are in 2022, and it's time for us to take a look beyond the science priority. And as you very well mentioned, today there is a ministry, but we have a superposition of the role of the CNPq with the role of the ministry. I think the ministry has the CCT to discuss the policies, and CNPq has to continue to be, as I wrote in an article, the home for the researcher. I see it that way. And then we can have 70 more years. And then wherever I am, I want to see these next 70 years. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and hooray for CNPq. Professor Paulo, can you do your final considerations? Yes, Selena, I agree with you. Hooray for CNPq. Without a question, one of the most important organisms, bodies that lead the innovation in Brazil. Without that, you can forget it. We're going to continue planting soybean and having just pastures, and this would not be enough for all Brazilians very soon. So this has to be associated with what kind of Brazil do we want? This is very important. So I think CNPq and the bodies from the government have to serve society. And I think this seminar was very interesting to observe the different visions, which is normal in a democracy, that we have in society of how the bodies have to act. So we have some operational characteristics in CNPq, but I think it's important that CNPq could have some more concrete actions of partnerships with facts. There are some actions like INCTs, but for sure, I think that this integration of CNPq with the FAPs could be more beneficial to everyone. I see that they do more calls with agencies, foreign agencies, than with the Brazilian agencies. And I think that if we could change that, it would be more beneficial. And I think this would integrate more and promote the development of our country, reducing the inequalities that we have, and taking a look at the future of the country for the future that we want for the country. Probably is not the future we want today, but this country is going to change. We hope that this happens fast, and let's work towards that. Okay, so thank you very much. I think it was very interesting, this conversation. Thank you very much, Professor Paulo Artacho. Fábio Guedes, please, can you do your final considerations? I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity and privilege to be here with Roberto, with Paulo, with the president of CNPq, Professor Evaldo, with the Professor Helena Nader. She doesn't like me to call her professor, but there are three people that I call professor, and then I have the greatest satisfaction to do that. Two are here, Professor Helena and Professor Zaira, and Professor Maria Conceição Tavares. And then I say, I think I'm okay with the economists. So I would like to thank you for your patience. And for those of you who are here and on YouTube, and I wish 70 more years of CNPq with more quality for the civil servants, for the Brazilian research, and I hope that it can give more contribution to science and technology in the world. And we have all the capacity to do that. This is not just a talk. We have the capacity to do that. Thank you very much, Fábio. Okay, now let's go to Roberto Muniz for his final considerations. Thank you. I say thank you again for this invitation. 70 years. Some say that we're becoming elderly, and some people say, no, we are in our teenage years. So I wish more future for CNPq, because CNPq is future. Congratulations for CNPq. It's not just a building, it's people who have sacrificed to do this. and to have science and technology. So congratulations for all of those of you who have contributed for the existence of CNPq and for the existence of science and technology. I would say that CNPq is future, and the future will be the society that we want and that we will achieve. And CNPq is there, and I agree with Professor Helena Nader that we need to have this discussion. I don't know if when I mentioned CEASP, I don't know if I was not understood, but I think that we need to reflect about the roles of CAs. We need to think about this fractioning of science in many areas. I don't think this will lead anywhere. So, but this, of course, does not make important the aspect that we think about a CNPq to have a constant dialogue, a constant action with the scientific community. I would say I am representing here the civil servants, but I'm going to say my personal opinion. I think it's not opinion from everyone, from the majority. And I hope, personally, I hope that CNPq was the main agency of foment in Brazil, but not just for that, execution of research following some successful models in the world. Unfortunately, we have some shady areas that need development, but I think that we need to execute research again, and then we could reduce these conflicts or shady areas in the ministry. Thank you very much, and hooray for CNPq.
Bem, chegamos ao final.
Well, we are ending now, and I need to say something, not only about the members here at this table, but the people what we have daily. We have we're very fond, the public's very fond of us. They really like us, and our position is a very interesting one. We have the support from society. But let's go to an end. Let's conclude. We're wrapping up our seminar of 70 years of CNPq, past, present, and future, thinking and transforming Brazil. So I would like to thank all the people that have participated in this journey. And I know this is impossible. Of course, us here from CNPq, from the scientific communities, the country has to be grateful to everyone that since the beginning have created CNPq. We have to thank everyone that have carried CNPq up to this moment. The presidents, the directors, the collaborators, the employees, and also the current people. President Vilela, the collaborators, the civil servants. Those are the people that really make CNPq work. And I want to thank the CAs, everyone. Thank you very much to you all. We close now our seminar, and I hope that we can have many, many years and a stronger CNPq that is really going to make a difference in people's lives and in the institutions and, of course, in Brazil's life. Yes. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye.